Hi, thank you for watching my video of the orange flower, painting of the orange flower. So here we go. What I'm doing here is a wet on wet, so you can see where I'm putting water first in the places where I want the paint to go. You can see it kind of ran over there on that petal. So I'm applying water right there. Then I apply the pigment, and I always want to go light to dark in watercolor. Sometimes it's hard to remember if you're doing other mediums, but light to dark always. And the great thing about watercolor that I love is that once you put down the pigment, you can dry off your brush, go over it again, and pick up some pigment. So even if it's too dark, you can lighten it. So you can create some amazing depth with that technique. So, but again, you always want to go light to dark. So I apply the yellow first, then you'll see I go in and do the second layer of the orange color, and I'll put the colors in the information below. So here's the effect that I just love with watercolor, with the puddling. And you see how I picked up a little bit of extra water there? That was kind of cool. It really just gives a beautiful watercolor effect, the wet on wet. It's just so pretty. I love it. Here I am just kind of creating my petals, trying not to lose my line of the petals. The graphite, I'm covering up the graphite with paint, so I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing here. Um, I would say I left the graphite a little dark, so on purpose, so you can see it in the video, but I would probably take a kneaded eraser and blot it up a little bit more normally, probably about half, but I purposely left it dark for the video. Sometimes I use a water-soluble graphite because it blends easily, but that's usually only if I'm using dark colors, because the graphite, it's like like a grayish watercolor, basically, the graphite. So it blends in really nicely, but only if I'm using like a darker colors, and I don't really mind if it tones it down. Otherwise, I usually use just a regular graphite pencil. A regular drawing pencil, maybe a H value or something like that. Okay, so here I'm just doing like a little picking up of the paint, trying to, not get it too wet and not to lose my highlights is really what I was doing right there. I'm really trying to keep the yellow now, so the yellow comes through and it doesn't get too dark or muddy. And I'm staying away from the wet areas. I'm not touching any of the wet areas. So the yellow underneath is totally dry that I'm putting on the darker colors. So anywhere right now that I'm painting is totally dry underneath. So technically it's another layer. It's a second or third layer. So it's all dry there. And just again, I'm kind of getting my darks. I'm going slow with the layers because I don't want it to go too dark. But I really want some really dark contrast, because that's really all art is about. It's lights and darks and contrast to make sure your darks are really dark and your lights are light enough so they pop, and you get that beautiful contrast in the depth that I just love so much in painting. That gives you the wow effect. So hopefully you'll get the wow effect with this little bud here. So here I'm going even darker, a little darker. Underneath is probably, I don't think it's not totally wet. It's about halfway wet. The paper, so it blends in a little bit. It's not so that the deeper red on top blends in with underneath a little bit. It's not such a super harsh line. If you want that harsh line, you have to wait till, for a fine line, you will have to make sure the paper underneath is totally and completely dry. And I have a little heater. Some people use blow dryers in between layers just because sometimes it takes too long. You don't want to wait, especially if it's a smaller project. You can just use a heater. So I actually have my blow dryer with my acrylics and my abstract acrylic, so I ended up getting just a little heater for my drafting table for my watercolors, and I found a really good one that I like. I'll put the link below so you can check it out. So everything is dry on that side of the petal, that side of the flower. So I'm going really dark. I'm confident enough that it's not going to bleed too much in there or lose the value of the color. Again, if it's too wet underneath, the paper just absorbs your color, and you have like 50% of the color when it totally dries. So that's another reason to make sure it's dry before you apply another layer. So, and you kind of with something like this, with all these different shadows, lines, you kind of have to be a little patient with it. You can see I'm kind of doing another area because I wanted it to dry for a minute, or I wanted to blend out the color, see what it was like. Yeah, there's plenty of ways, in my future videos, you'll see plenty of ways kind of to do fun and easy watercolor effects with just a few strokes of a paintbrush, but I kind of was looking more for a deep, a deep kind of a effect. Again, more of a contrast effect with this flower. It was almost like a study of the different hues of the oranges and the reds and the greens. So you kind of doing the complementary colors with the blue in the background as well. So I used some of the greens, of course, in the flower to bring in a little bit of a blue hue into it. To deepen, to make that brown on the bottom part of the bud there, I actually added some blue to my orangey red color, and that gave it that deep effect. Like that right there, that isn't black or anything, that is blue, the orange that I used, and some red. So I rarely use black. I really love the effect of more of a reddish black or a bluish black. My paintings, sometimes you have to do it, if you need something just super dark. But a lot of times I'll do a layer, like I'll do a layer of a blue, and then a black, and over it, and then a blue over that, then a red or something like that, just to get a super, super deep black. Now I'm doing some detail here. That's all dried, so I'm going in to get the fine lines and to find the petals. And I still want to keep the petals in the back there on the blurry side, because I don't want that to be the focus of the painting. I want the more of in the front of the petals to be focused. So I have those in detail. Now I'm ready to do the background here. Kind of playing around on a little piece of scratch paper with my blues. So here I'm applying just water to the background, and that's a little bleached titanium color that I just love. I think it's from Daniel Smith. Again, I'll put the colors below. The paper's really wet. I applied a little bit of that bleached titanium white, and then I went in with a wet color, phthalo blue, that I just love, and I blot with a little tissue to get the highlights and just kind of get a nice blurred, kind of a smoky background is what I was looking for. So I'm tilting the paper here so I can move the paint around and have it go where I want it to go. And I don't want it to look too neat. I want it to look real abstract-y and kind of messy. And so that's kind of what I was going for. But I love this color blue, so I wanted to get all different tones of that color. So I have the light and the dark and all that kind of stuff. So, and then here's just a little bit more detail. I love the dry brushing. So the paper is actually on the drier side down there, and my brush is medium to dry, and I pick up just a little bit of paint and kind of get that dry brushed look that I just love. Now down below, I mixed in the titanium white with some burnt sienna, raw umber, and for that little background there, just to get a little contrast behind the stems and stuff, just to get a little different texture and stuff for the background. And I'm just doing in the greens and doing the stems, and not going to do too much detail. I don't want them to be the focus of it all, so not really, just two, two color, dark green, medium green, light green, just different tones of the same green. And maybe I add a little bit of the blue, the phthalo blue is what I use to deepen up the green that I use there. Or I just added some of the yellow to the blue that I did in the flower. So I'll put all the colors I used below and everything below. So I'm just getting some fine detail there. You can see it just, towards the beginning is really fun. Towards the end, you really kind of got to hone in and get your detail. But I just love the peony buds there. I'm definitely going to be painting more of these. I just absolutely love kind of the rustic look, the natural look of them. Plus the orange, these orange colors are just gorgeous. So I'm going kind of deep with that leaf. Again, I want the contrast, and I don't want it to be a focal point. So when you do darker colors, it kind of pushes the subject in the back. So I'm doing the darker colors on the leaves because I kind of want them in the shadows and not too up front. I really want the leaves or the petals to pop and that sort of thing. And you'll see on my real-time, full-time video of the entire video of me painting, you'll see I do some kind of fun highlights, even with some metallics on the petals. After I do all this, I wanted to get more depth and kind of have the petals pop in the bloom, the one that have bloomed. And so I was playing around with some of the highlights and metallics like gold and yellow gold, and just to see what would happen. So it was, quite fun. It was fun. So here we are. We're almost coming to an end here. Now I'm just kind of getting the highlights, getting the leaves and the shadows for this other flower. So you can kind of see it just, everything just takes time. And, when you speed up these videos, it seems like, oh, wow, she, painted that in 20 minutes. And it's like, no, not at all. You have to think about, first you have to draw it out and think about the composition and the colors that you want to use. And pretty much you want to kind of have a plan. I mean, you can definitely always just go and play, which I always recommend. Definitely playing. Yeah, playing is great for practice and playing with colors, making a color wheel. I have a video on a color wheel, and I like to kind of choose a color and see which colors make the best, say violet, or which combination of colors make the best green. Pretty much just kind of play around with them all your burnt siennas and raw umbers, and there's infinite amount of colors you could make and create. So it's always fun to play. Here is the final result. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If so, please hit that like button and subscribe. And I do have my Patreon account that I would love for you to visit. Thank you.